Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to have everybody here. Everybody I want to be here are here. Actually, it's not bad, and some people are still listening. I hope over time it will slowly come in. I hope, and sometimes it does happen. Today, we're going to talk about globalization. So why should we talk about globalization? I mean, it's in everybody's life. Like what you use from overseas, most likely. What you earn, your company, it's probably international, multinational company, or working with some other companies from overseas as suppliers, or who you work with, you know. Like I have first-hand experience. I work with people overseas, from India, from some software development things. We used to communicate with each other with the telecommunication technology. And what you invest, you know, I don't know your investment portfolio must be has something like international, multinational companies or foreign companies. This is all part of globalization. Well, I can tell you we have some disagreement on this issue. Well, I like disagreement. I hate to say that, but I thrive on disagreement. And started with yesterday. I was here to test out the equipment because it's the first time we're going to do video using projector. I already used that special camera of mine, so I want to make sure 3 pieces will work together as expected. So I was here doing the testing, and they were meeting there. They booked the room for their meeting, and I was like, I'd be quiet. They're nice enough to let me test the thing, even with a little noise. And when I was leaving, they say, "Oh, what's your meeting about?" I said, "Globalization." One of the guys said, "Isn't that dead? Is globalization dead?" I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe you want to come and take a listen." But that's the disagreement. That's sentiment. That actually scientifically could be shown. As for Hermioni, that's where disagreement the first time came to my mind. We're going to do a debate, but I think it's better format will be kind of interview moderating, moderated interview discussion. And better yet, we're going to add multimedia. We're going to add some media so you can look at some news or some short clips. I won't make it long. Some of the videos are 10 minutes long. Now I'm going to only show you the first 30 seconds something. So see how you respond. It's not for you to learn, but for you to respond. Now we all, you can say learning by responding to each other, hear each other's opinions. And for the rest of the reading, deep research is up to individuals in your study room or in your library, right? But here we have fun, we have some interaction. So that ushers in the third stage of Geopolitical Forum. The first stage, which is a free-form discussion. Second stage, it's been 12 months up to this point. We always have a presenter or debaters or so 1 or 2 speakers. For the third one, we're going to add this more interactive format. Hopefully, the videos that I show will facilitate that. So we have more discussion. So the audience will have more weight to this program, your response, your opinion, so when we open to that, you can ask your question, you can voice your comments, statements, rebuttals. We have all in one. I've been to enough other seminars, talks, meetups. I really love them. But someone in this room reminded me, Eric, they are really boring. I was like, yeah, because you know, when you think about it, they have a panel, they have a presenter, they talk, and you ask questions. If you're really hot on this topic, you may find something, oh, I get something out of it. But the thing itself, if you look at it from a distance, it's really boring. I used to think I want to be like them because they're like named institutions, right? Chicago Council on Global Affairs, Roberta Buffett Institute for Global Affairs, Institute on politics. This and that. They have big names. They have money. I want to be like them. But someone in this room, you know who you are, reminded me, Eric, they're really boring. I said, that's right. Maybe I don't want to be like them exactly. That's the idea. I will add some video, more interactive. One other thing, those institutions, those groups, they say, oh, well, it's time for Q&A. Make sure it's a question and get to a question fast. Me, okay, you're free to make statements, rebuttals, and questions. And since we're not a big group today, you can have up to 5 minutes. You know, we will let the moderator to moderate, to adjust the pace. But basically, I don't go for like, you know, that's like really rude. You can have a question. One question, you get to a question fast. That's really rude, to say the least. You know, I don't want to get in ranting or something. I'm just saying I have one experience. I didn't do that, and I was considered rude. But I actually apologized. I didn't want to apologize, but that was expected, right? I sometimes do things that's expected. But when I went home, I was like, who's rude? You're the rude one. Why only question? Why have to get to the question fast, right? Why can I say something, right? That's how I run my group. So you get the idea. So since this is new, we'll see how it goes. I'm committed to something new, but I will fine-tune it. So you are very important in that respect too. You help me learn the process, how to fine-tune it, make it better. We're all part of the process. I hope we all gain something out of it. So let me introduce our moderator. Our moderator, Hermioni Zouridis. She's a data scientist. She holds a PhD in chemical engineering and has a strong background in oncology research. Her industry experience includes leading data and AI solutions at AstraZeneca. She now specializes in data visualization, bioinformatics, and using real-world data sets to support strategic investment decisions. That's money stuff. Dr. Zouridis serves as director of a nonprofit dedicated to helping college women successfully transition into STEM careers. In geopolitics, her interest in using data to cut through headlines, uncover deeper patterns, thereby bringing clarity to complex global dynamics. I had her over early this year, probably 10 months ago. Her presenting decoupling between the U.S. and China. So we're gonna definitely revisit that part of the topic, globalization. Today's topic is the future of globalization. But we're gonna ultimately gonna get to the future, what our outlook is for globalization. Is it gonna be in decline, or is it gonna continue to be the key driver for global development and prosperity? So we will discuss, we will debate, we will see what each other has to say. So please take it over.
Okay. Thank you for the kind introduction, Eric. But first I have to introduce Eric. Eric is a fintech professional turned geopolitics analyst specializing in China. Eric founded and runs the Geopolitical Forum that we're all in right now. He writes on Substack under Eric Mao and has a presence on X as Shepherd Mao. His first book, Diversity, the Modern Fetish, and Equality in the Guise of Ideal, published in 2018, will not be his only book. It's not his last book. The paradox that East and West are not comparable, yet contrasting and essential to mutual understanding, can be attributed to Eric. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you. I will start with a little statement or a little video, a little facts, and she will follow up with questions, and it's up to her when you will respond to video, to my statement, or you have something just came to your mind. It's very dynamic. She will control the pace and the process. So let me start with this.
I always say tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary. A tariff.
And this is a direct attack.
Donald Trump, who changes his mind between, breakfast, he levels his lunch, and supper time.
What the heck is going on? Why is Trump hitting his closest allies with tariffs? Why does he?
So let's open up the floor to everyone. What does everyone think about what's happening with the tariffs? And I guess the bigger question I have is that, is it really contributing to deglobalization, or is it just triggering perhaps a rewiring of the world? Would anyone like to talk about tariffs?
Oh,
Alex.
Well, it's nothing new. The U.S. has done it in the past. I forget when. Maybe somebody else knows, like in the 30s or something.
Yeah.
So it's not this thing that's completely unprecedented. So I don't know how much of an effect it will have on globalization. There are a lot of other countries in the world too. Obviously, the U.S. is most powerful economically, but yeah, it's not unprecedented. It has been done, and I can't remember the details of when it was done, but maybe there's a lesson we can learn from that time. Maybe somebody else can speak to that. I don't know.
Robert?
Okay, just to give a little bit of my background, I'm a licensed customs broker and certified customs specialist. I've been in the import business since 1997, and I've been clearing freight through customs and various government agencies since 1998. Just to do a little bit of background with the Smoot-Hawley Act that Alex referred to, back in the 1930s, and there was a little bit of protectionist in our country. In fact, 1930s and today we see a lot of parallels. You have Republicans mostly, or in the government, in the country as a whole, people were a lot more isolationists and also protectionists, and they wanted to protect the farmers, and so they passed the Smoot-Hawley Act. I think it was around 1930, came into effect in 1931, and we raised our tariffs at the highest level, since the Taft administration, and countries around the world followed suit. And it wasn't the main contributor of the stock market crash that happened in 1929, but it was a big contributor to the global slowdown at the time. Now, Mark Twain says that history does not repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. And that was one of my biggest fears this coming year, because after Trump got elected, and I think it was in April, he started coming in with reciprocal tariffs and putting, I think, 10%, and then he went up to 20%. And it really depends on the country, because what he's trying to do is he sees an imbalance of trade. And he's seen that since the 1980s when Japan, instead of China, we were concerned about Japan. But since then, Japan has gone into a long recession that they can't seem to shake off. They're not as competitive as they were back in the 80s. But Donald Trump has seen that, and it still remains a part of his basic philosophy that other countries are ripping us off and we need to do something about it. He thinks about the Rust Belt, where the heartland of America, we've lost a lot of industry to other countries. A lot of stuff has gone to China. We're no longer the manufacturing leaders that we once were, and he equates that as being an economic failure. And he wanted his things, and getting elected the first term he concentrated on China, but he also hit other countries as well. But this time he went gangbusters on it. And in my industry, one of the problems that has occurred is that when companies buy goods, right, sometimes they have contracts that are months in the future, right? Because it takes time for the seller to make the product and sell it to the United States. Well, the contracts are based on those costs, you know, and then when you have a president who comes in and he wants to do everything transactional, and one day your tariff rate might be 10%, the next day your tariff rate might be 20% or whatever, it causes uncertainty in the market. And the buyers and the sellers, it disrupts their contract agreements. And then when the product gets here, they can't sell it to their customers at a higher price because the rates have already been set in stone. And I've actually already had some customers who came, one company out of Germany. The company I work for is based in Germany.
Okay. So how does this relate? So I guess, just to interrupt, do you think that this is good or bad for the future of globalization, everything that you're observing?
I think it's bad. I think it's really bad. And I'll give you the reason why I think it's bad. Protectionism is not good for any country. In fact, even, and I have to agree with President Xi of China. He said nobody wins a trade war. I think that's what he said in the past. You know, and I agree with you. What we really should be doing globally is lowering our tariff rates, lowering our protectionist barriers, and every country has them. And Trump is not wrong. Other countries have much higher tariff rates than we do. But he forgets the fact that globalization is so big. It's not just about goods. It's also about services. And this is a part where the United States, as Fareed Zakaria said, we lead the world in leaps and bounds when it comes to the service industry. You know, that is our core competency in this country. You know, because we just have a good infrastructure when it comes to finance, intellectual property rights, and mechanisms to protect all that, where we just excel in those fields. But I'm afraid that Mr. Trump, what he's trying to do is he's trying to dismantle that. He's disrupting the funds to the educational system, where a lot of universities have not received their funding. He's cut off granting visas for students to come from other countries and study at our universities, and generating a much diverse intellectual pool, so to speak. And I think overall, what's going to happen, and I'm sorry, but I got to make this point, overall, these policies are very detrimental. Globalization may not be diminished, but United States leadership in it will, if we do not reverse course as soon as this man is out of office.
I think I can build on that.
The one thing to say, I think it's questionable if a service-based industry distributes wealth to the most amount of people. Like when I lived in Singapore, they wanted to transition to a fully service-based economy, and they were really against that. They're like, no, we still have to hang on to our high-end manufacturing because that's not really what lifts everyone out of poverty. It kind of like consolidates the wealth to a relatively small elite. So that's like the one rebuttal I have to that. Before we get to Eric, Shijin was like nodding a lot. Like I just want to hear like any comments you might have, because a lot of times Robert was talking, you were like, yeah.
Yeah, I think like Robert just knows more, like, but I still have something to say about like how tariff and its stated purposes and the policy goals, like has just as Robert has said, one of its goals is to bring back manufacturing back to America, and some other goals including like reverse the balance sheet of the federal government so that the outstanding crisis of finance will not lead to something bad, such as a government shutdown. But that goal has never been met, and as well as like the global uncertainty it stirs, like the globalization as a trend, it is like something conducive to the rule of comparative advantage, as pointed out by Adam Smith. So the rule will not diminish itself, so it will not automatically disappear by some administrative orders, and it will still continue to apply like in the globe. Just if you are not willing to play with the rule, and you will be punished. So that's basically how, if we call this globalization or comparative advantage or like some other names, it doesn't matter. What matters is like the material impact it has on the global supply chain. Yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments before Eric builds on Robert's point?
This is Chi's point.
Yeah.
Okay, I really want to build on Robert and Sichi's arguments. And I happen to agree with both of them. I hope there's some disagreement coming up. I guess I strive on disagreements. But so far, we only have agreements, which is Robert said it's bad for economy. Actually, it's consistent with what Sichi is saying. Because there's a rule that I believe in, Adam Smith, Ricardo. Adam Smith in terms of economy or political economics that they would say back in the day. And Ricardo is focused on international economy. And you have the firms, the entities, whether it's individual or the firms, find the best way to use their comparative advantage in their production and trade. So if you break that, that will hurt the economy. That's Robert's point. It's not good for anyone. Because someone breaks it, someone else will break it. In retaliation for whatever reason, or without political reasons, simply because that ecosystem, if you will, someone breaks that, someone has disruption. The disruption will be compensated or influenced in some other way, someone else in the same system will have to break it one way or another. So all in all, it's going to be bad for everybody. So before I continue, I want to insert a little bit like statistics so you have some perspective, especially centered around China and US, right? The two biggest economies in the trade war, like this, the center of the storm in this global trade war environment, if you will. So 2022, year 2022 is considered the height of the trade between US and China, according to some AI, okay? And that year, approximately $690.6 billion trade between the two countries. And 2024, well, I asked the AI current, but apparently the whole universe only has data up to 2024. So that's what we have to go by. The total trade between the two countries, $658.9 billion. So that accounts for a 4.6% decrease from the height. Bear in mind, 2022 is already, Trump started the trade war in his first term, probably 2018. So that's already, Trump's first term is over, it's already deep in the Biden's term. So that tells me it doesn't have much effect in terms of trade volume, like Trump would think, powerful as he was as president of the United States, he is not able to change the volume, turn the tide. Maybe because he cannot, he's as powerful as he was, he's not as powerful as Adam Smith or Ricardo. Plus, Ricardo and Adam Smith telling him, you screwed up. Although the number-wise, you didn't move the needle much, but you screwed things up. That's why the further, okay, I want to break it down to goods trade. I think it's useful information. Out of that 2024 number, the goods trade is 582 billion. And the services, like Robert reminded everybody, another aspect, important aspect of the global trade is services. It is 76.9. So the goods trade was down 3% from the height of 2022. The import was up 22.7% from 2023. From the US perspective, the services from exports up 15.3. So US, not only did they have surplus in services trade, it went up further into 2024 by 15.3%.
Eric, can you define what you mean by service export?
Services export is like,
Because that's a broad thing, right?
if you buy a computer in China, loaded with Microsoft software or operating system, Microsoft gets a cut. So that's a service plus, service trade export from Microsoft, from US to China. So that's a plus on the US side. And also some service, Oracle, let's say Oracle, it's a database company. Also it's what's it called, CRM company. It sells Oracle software and service all over the world. If it sells to Britain, and Britain, some company load Oracle, you have to pay Oracle license fee, service fee, that sort of thing. That's another plus on the US side in terms of service trade. So they export.
So the one counterpoint I have to that is kind of like, again, like, I'm not an economist, right? I'm a PhD chemical engineer, as Eric said, so I have no idea about economics, but instinctive.
I'm not that rude.
I'm saying I don't know. But my question is like, okay, Oracle, the number of software engineers it takes, right, to make Oracle database, it's very small. So all of the Silicon Valley companies, right, they use a lot of asymmetric warfare to generate billions in wealth for like relatively small numbers of people. So even if that's true that we're exporting our services all around the world, I think if Trump were sitting in the room, he'd probably say, well, not everybody can do services, so it's still gonna not be the best thing for the country. Even though a lot of the wealth is coming back through services, it's not necessarily gonna be distributed in a way that lifts people out of poverty or helps people.
That's true.
That's
I didn't say the distribution of wealth or equality issue. I'm just we should talk about it. But I was still on this topic of whether Trump's policies affect the trade balance. My argument and the number shows not that much. Because we're going to show, although it kind of moved the needle a little bit between US and China in terms of goods trade, but overall on the global view, it didn't change the way Trump wanted. Trump wants to change this way, and the world keeps going that way.
The one question is, do they have other metrics like foreign direct investment and other things to show about money changing borders that's not just the transferring of goods and services?
True. I don't have a lot of statistics on the FDI, foreign direct investment, but I can conceptually say that make statements about that, see if you're convinced. But let me finish by saying, so you say the numbers are not moving Trump's way, but the economy is hurt globally because you're breaking the rule. You're breaking the law of the nature, let's put it that way. So what changed? What I say is globalization, in terms of the overall trend is not in decline, certainly not dead, but still continue to grow. So what changed? What gives? It's reconfiguring. It's different. Because before, the consideration of economy, efficiency, productivity dominates the consideration of corporations or investors. But now, because geopolitical considerations, because Trump's policy, it has to consider politics, strategic consideration, or to counter government's policy. Because government's policy contradicts my corporate interests. We have to go around it. Instead of before, I could just pursue efficiency, productivity. That's how you go against the nature of the economy, the global economy and trade. So we are reconfiguring, but we're not going down, will continue to go up. What gives the global economy is reconfiguring. The connectivity is reconfiguring. Hopefully, the harm is not so bad that it ceases the global connectivity. It ceases to be the driver of prosperity and growth. Hopefully, I'm on the optimistic side because I have numbers show it, but that's all I have so far. We continue the thought process.
You know, Trump wasn't that aggressive in the term that was from before, in the first term that he's got. He wasn't that aggressive with this tariffs situation. I just wonder why he is way more aggressive with this situation. Because, you know, I don't know if the cattle people, the cattle and the farmers have to do with it, asking Trump to stop the imports from other places, or I don't know if it has to do with it. Like maybe they feel hurt in their economy, they want to produce more for the country, and maybe that's the reason why he heard their voices. You know, people from I don't know Wisconsin, all those cattle, the people that produce cattle. But now I heard that he just removed the tariffs from Brazil, which is a big exporter of meat. Yeah. So I guess he backed up because it's a big problem. Because now a burger is costing $17.
Yep.
So you know, I guess it's.
Yeah, he was kind of started slow last term, but he was like starting. It didn't necessarily start at April 1st, where he had this Liberty announcement, where he hiked everybody's tariff all over the world, and of course focusing on China. But actually, the day he was inaugurated, he's already plotting for it, and so what he does is the strategic stuff, the strategic items, they will not export to China. But they will export more and more soybean, for example. Those other things, they want to sell more and more to China. But not the high-end chips, semiconductors, because that will aid China's competitiveness. Right? So that's his strategy. But along the way, China said, "Hey, we're not lying down, take it, right? So we're gonna stop buying soybeans from you. You know, you have your calculation, I have my calculation too." So they switched to Brazil, Argentina.
That's assuming that Trump is even like serious about a strategy. Like I think he just likes to say stuff like that to kind of manipulate opinions, or like I don't think he's really revealing what he really what's really in his cards. So he could just be, because they say on Wall Street, right? Taco Trump always chickens out. He's always like changing things around, and I think he's just using the threat of tariffs as a way to like manipulate either internal public opinion or worldwide public opinion more than he actually wants to use the tariffs as like a tool itself to manipulate the trade. But that's just
for the lack of a better word, strategy, we can come up with something else.
It's to throw shit against the wall and see what sticks. Strategy.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
That's who he is, though. Like, I remember when he first got elected, I read his book, The Art of the Deal, just to be like, who is this person that, and that's one of his tactics. Like, even when he was in real estate, he would start by saying something totally outrageous to kind of like confuse the other person, and then go in and get like whatever it was that he was trying to do. So it's like, right, he's being true to like who he is, whether you like him or not.
It can be effective, but eventually it's gonna not be effective. Overall,
it can only be effective if you use it like really sparingly, right? Because then people just get onto you.
Yeah. But even that is not the point. So basically, we're discussing about the production side, whether the comparative advantage of each country, of each economy is being used to the most amount so that we can produce the most amount of good globally, like whether it is crops, soybeans, or chips, no matter what. So the problem now we're discussing is about distribution. So the distribution is the most problematic part and it is a
I always say tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a part that stirs most public discontent, as shown by the election of Zohran Mamdani in New York. And even Trump has agreed on this. So he endorses Zohran's effort to change the distribution regime in New York City. But like the power of his administration can be, why didn't he channel all the way together toward the distribution part? As you have said, probably the engineering, the high-end industry will not benefit as much, but we can change the distribution regime, tax more on the higher end, and they're not spending all of that money anyway. So that could be a progressive thing to the economy, so that if we're taxing them money and relocating them to lower income families, and they are really struggling to make ends meet, so they are definitely more willing to spend that money, and that makes the economy more that accelerates the economy.
Trump, just to little expand on that, he tariffs a lot of Chinese imported Chinese goods, and in order that his purported purpose, his strategy, right, is to bring to reshoring, offshoring as opposed to offshoring, reshoring, to bring the industry manufacturing back to the United States. But it didn't happen that way. Instead, it went to different countries. Instead of China, it went to Vietnam, it went to Mexico. Those two are the biggest gainer in those tariff policies. So instead of coming from made in China, it made it from Mexico, made in Vietnam. And a lot of those are from China. They ship it to what's called re-trafficking something to Vietnam and Mexico. So as you can see, we probably a lot of the sentiment is, Trump's policy is to throw everything to the wall, see what sticks, and less sticks nowadays. And it has an effect to break the rule of economy, or the nature of economy. Instead of a shorter route directly from China, most efficient route, it has to go around to Vietnam, to Mexico, added to the cost. Not to mention the cost added through tariffs. So that's another thing that didn't. But in totality, if you look at the number, the numbers don't change much. But it just didn't bring the manufacturing back to the U.S. You import, instead of from China, you import from other countries. So the import number doesn't change. Or any more feedback before I go to the next video?
I do have something to say about the Vietnamese. It's true that some production went to Vietnam and stuff like that, but the countries like Vietnam and Malaysia, they've had their long-term strategy to take some of China's industries away. A lot of your textiles are moving away from China. For one, as Chinese economy becomes more complex, and they go into stuff like robotics and automobiles and stuff like that, they have to let go of some industries that are more labor intensive and not as high tech, like textiles. Vietnam has been taking a lot of textiles for the past 15 years, and I would say they since Trump's second term, or his first term, that movement of textile shipments to Vietnam and Bangladesh has increased. Just like electronics, Malaysia has actually tried to develop a strategy of getting electronic market, like stuff like goes into your cell phones, Motorola, type of stuff like that, electronics. Malaysia actually has a lot of production in that, but that's the way the global economy goes. I remember as a small child, and I must have been destined for my field, because even as a small child, I was so fascinated with the country of origin markings on my toys. And I remember as a child, my toys were made in Hong Kong or Japan. And then over years, all that is shifted to China. Now, 95% of your toys, when you're talking about action figures and dolls and stuff like that, they come from China. 90% of your fireworks comes from China, because China has found a way to corner that market, and it's much more cheaper to manufacture those goods in China than anywhere else. Now, Hong Kong and Japan, they went to other things. Hong Kong went to textiles for a while. Now Hong Kong is more into the services industry. You know, Japan's economy after World War II, it went way up into manufacturing, you know, cars and automobiles and stuff like that. So those change over a period of time, even though the import numbers don't quite, you know, show that. It's just that the industries do change, and you always have to be cognizant of that fact. And there's one other point I do want to make. When buyers and sellers get together across international lines, there has to be a relationship established, right? You have to be able to trust the people you're buying from, not just that you're going to get the goods with your money. You know, you send your money to them and you're going to get your goods returned. But you're also making sure that you get the right quality of your goods, that the goods that you bring in from your manufacturer overseas meets the quality control that you can sell to your customers. For years, you know, buyers and sellers, importers and exporters, they have developed these relationships where they trust each other. You know, so for a time being, they can weather the storms of tariff storm, you know, the tariff storm. You know, because they have a relationship that's not so easily replaced. You know, we think of goods as being like commodities, but it's a lot more complicated than that. Your widgets have to meet spec. You know, your widgets have to be satisfactory to your customer, your domestic customer. And building those relationships across international borders it takes years, sometimes decades to establish. My biggest concern is, you know, 1 or 2 years we might be able to weather the storm. But if it goes on for a long period of time, with the back and forth and the tariff wars and stuff like that, it is going to have a serious effect on all these relationships. Until one day we're going to get up and just like in, you know, and we're going to find out that the whole system is collapsed because of the financial strain that we don't always see until it's too late.
Yeah, I want to add that not only relationships take a long time to establish, also the supply chain takes longer to establish. That's why it's so hard for the United States to bring manufacturing back. It's not a 1 or 2 factory, it's a whole chain. The saying chain is a little misleading. It's a network. It's not easy. It's people. It's like a human capital. It's capital. It's human capital. It's a know-how. It's a willingness. United States is not the same country as it was in the 1960s and 70s when it was at the height of manufacturing. It's how many young people want to go to manufacturing as a career, right? Not that many.
Immigrants are the ones that go to manufacturing mostly.
So now we talked about the president. Now we go down the hierarchy and go to the.
Because there were 2 conceits that our leadership class had when it.
This is really short.
Because there were 2 conceits that our leadership class had when it came to globalization. The first is assuming that we could separate the making of things from the design of things. The idea of globalization was that rich countries would move further up the value chain while the poor countries made the simpler things. But I think we got it wrong. It turns out that the geographies that do the manufacturing get awfully good at the designing of things. There are network effects, as you all well understand. The firms that design products work with firms that manufacture. Now that was the first conceit of globalization. I think the second is that cheap labor is fundamentally a crutch. and it's a crutch that inhibits innovation. I might even say that it's a drug that too many American firms got addicted to. Now, if you can make a product more cheaply, it's far too easy to do that rather than to innovate. And so I'd ask my friends, both on the tech optimist side and on the populist side, not to see the failure of the logic of globalization as a failure of innovation. Indeed, I'd say that globalization's hunger for cheap labor is a problem precisely because it's been bad for innovation. Both our working people, our populists, and our innovators gathered here today have the same enemy. And the solution, I believe, is American innovation.
Keep in mind, globalization was a reaction to an American...
Wait, this guy can wait. So what's your response? By the way, that's a man who called Chinese workers peasants, or Chinese people peasants.
So cheap labor blocks innovation. I don't understand the link that cheap labor...
Yeah, because when you can just like give a menial task to someone to do it, you don't have to, it doesn't constrain you and force you to figure out how to automate it and to like invent new technology to make that happen.
Okay, yeah, cheap labor does prevent you from automating.
Well, he was one of the proteges of Peter Thiel, who's the famous like Silicon Valley venture capitalist. Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't really, rightly or wrongly, I don't really disagree with what he's saying because, yeah, like when you give someone, when you outsource to China to make different things, eventually, you know, that group is going to get, China or whoever, Spain, Brazil, whoever, right? Like they're going to get really good at the making of the thing, and then they're going to be the ones that can figure out how to innovate it and improve it over time. And then also definitely constraints force innovation, and that's been documented in a lot of places.
Well, I mean, innovation is, take the phone, okay? If you've ever watched, I encourage you, if you're interested, if you haven't seen it, go on YouTube and watch Steve Jobs introduce the iPhone. Mm-hmm. And he puts up a picture of the fancy so-called smartphones at the time. And he talks about how the fact that they were so hard to use, for example, that they did have like an address book capability, but that most people use their frequent caller page, whatever, to make calls because it's tricky to add a new person to your address book on the phones. And of course they had all these little plastic buttons instead of a touch screen and so on. That's innovation. And I don't know how China's doing in innovation. I'm not really following things carefully, but it's clear that China knows how to make phones really well. No question on my part on that. I don't know if they're innovating. I don't know if they're, it's a breakthrough products.
Electric vehicles.
What? Yeah,
electric vehicles, BYD, NEO, electric vehicles, and going into smart cars, not just that your car has a battery, but the car can sort of drive itself.
Self-driving. I mean, Tesla has full self-driving. Okay.
And also
that was an innovation. Yes.
How quickly you can charge your vehicle.
Right.
Another.
I think it's beyond dispute that the U.S. really basically made the AI breakthrough. Now, China's doing it now, but it didn't originate.
Yeah, it remains to be seen what's going to happen in the future, but like up until recently, China's been like a very good like fast follower. But
and I'm not putting China down. I'm just saying, I mean, they're very, very good at making things. Absolutely positive.
And doing like incremental improvements.
Yeah. But they're innovation is a very important thing, because if you can lead with innovation, then you can afford to have some other countries manufacture them, I guess. But
yeah, they move up the value chain.
Yeah.
Now they move up the value chain by doing a lot of things, incremental as well. Also, by doing incremental, they can have their own brands to replace the foreign or American brands, other brands. That's the way they move up the value chain. But that's not innovation. That's not innovation in the sense like a revolutionary.
Yeah, it's innovative.
It's from 1 to 2, but from 0 to 1.
That's
the U.S. still does it best.
That's it exactly, 0 to 1.
China is facing that challenge.
Yeah.
That's why China, since COVID time, And from the numbers, I just came back from China 3 weeks ago, from the people on the street, they're in recession.
Yeah.
So how you look at the recession, I look at the recession is their transitional process. They want to move from incremental innovation to 0 to 1 innovation. That's how they break through to the next, to break away from the trap of middle income trap.
Yeah, the U.S. invented the transistor. The U.S. invented the integrated circuit. The U.S. invented the solar cell. Okay? Now, if you want to buy an integrated circuit, you go to Taiwan if you want cutting edge. Okay? But the U.S. invented it. And, yeah, anyway. So
there's one thing I want to throw out there about innovation that wasn't talked about. Obama back in 2016 passed the Trade Facilitation Trade Enforcement Act. And one of the provisions of that act was intellectual property rights. If you're an American company and you come up with something, a better mousetrap or whatever, okay? Well, and you tell customs, look, this is my intellectual property rights, and Nike is very, very good about this. These are my intellectual property rights. I want you to make sure that no shipments come in the United States that are infringement on my intellectual property rights. Well, what will happen is you'll have a country in China. It doesn't have to be China. It can be other countries. Somebody to take those plans or whatever and do some reverse engineering, try to export that stuff into the United States. Well, if you're an importer to protect these intellectual property rights, and you got a thing, and then customs finds out that these people are bringing in similar or identical merchandise, gray market goods, well, customs has the authority, because of the TIA, to seize those goods and to protect the importer's rights. So that's a legal mechanism that is built into our system thanks to that piece of legislation. I do want to throw that out there. So there is a protection from gray market goods. But I would encourage, if you're an importer, to sign up with customs, and you can go on your website, you can give your intellectual property rights from the patent office or whatever, and customs will be obliged to enforce that.
The first innovator is often the loser. So we had Research in Motion who created the BlackBerry, right, the first smartphone. And it was Kodak who created the digital camera.
MySpace before Facebook. Where's MySpace now?
MySpace before Facebook is exactly. So a lot of times the very first innovator, it's actually the N+1 person or company that does a lot better. But the cars, the electric vehicles in China, they have blade batteries, they charge faster, they need less charging, and NIO has battery swap technology, but in some of the cars, there's demonstrations where they drive extremely stable, so you have like the champagne glasses on the cars driving in this bumpy way, and the champagne glasses are stable. It's a demonstration, but they are doing a lot of they're building nice electric vehicles.
Do you see any on the road here? No, you don't.
Well,
they're banned from being imported.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Why are they banned?
Why are they banned?
You got companies like Tesla or what's the other one? Rivian.
Yeah.
They lobby Congress and make it very hard because it's not that easy to import in the United States. For one thing, if you got something like that, you gotta get permission. You gotta see if the United States will allow it. Because there's two types of barriers. You got tariff barriers, and then you got outright restrictions. Like one of the things that Trump did to Land Rover is that the UK has now got a quota system in place where they can only export so many Land Rover vehicles to the United States from here on out. I forgot what how many units it is, but those type of barriers.
So why don't the Chinese do what the Japanese did, namely come over to the U.S. and build plants to make Chinese electric cars?
They could do that.
Well,
They
why
do have
is it
factories
happening?
in Brazil, but I don't think they do have factories.
No, well, why not?
And they
You
have
got
factories in
Toyota.
Europe.
Well, that's
I
a
know
good
they have
question. You
factories
have
in
to ask Chinese
Turkey
about that.
or Hungary, I think they build, so they are doing what you just said in Europe and in South
But why
America.
not the US?
It's probably a pretty
Too expensive.
unstable investment environment for them. And in several other areas of manufacturing, anything that's really tied to tax credits, which electric vehicles are. Now there are new regulations called foreign entities of concern, that China is one of them, are flagged. And if a company is owned by, I think, more than 25% by a foreign entity of concern or influenced by a foreign entity of concern, they don't get the tax credits. So they would be at an immediate disadvantage.
But their cars are cheaper. Their cars are cheaper. They can make cheaper.
Well, how are they cheaper? The Chinese government subsidizing that?
I don't know. Maybe
Yes,
that's the
yes,
That
answer.
might be a
yes,
reason
indeed.
to.
Maybe that's the answer.
The Chinese government is.
Okay, so they're not really cheaper. They're cheaper
Because I
because the
can tell
government
you,
is
there
subsidizing.
was a World Trade Court case that happened, how many years, about a decade ago or before, where Canada and the United States sued China to the World Trade Court, because what happened was China was protecting their auto industry by charging 25% and calling even parts of a car a full car. And in fact, the World Trade Organization slapped them down because of the fact is they were playing Humpty Dumptyism with the tariff classification.
The word means what I mean.
Yeah. The general rules of interpretation, you can't classify a part as a complete item of a thing. Because a part was about 2.6% duty, and the actual vehicle was about 25% duty, but they were classifying the parts themselves under a vehicle, which caused that, and you can't really do that. That's really not bona fide going with the harmonized tariff and the way all the countries around the world have agreed on how to classify goods under a tariff.
To her point as well, like the labor in China is obviously so much cheaper. So any manufactured product in China is
if they manufacture it here, the labor costs would be much higher.
And just the dollar value is so expensive. Just paying anyone in dollars, even if it's minimum salary.
But if they got a good vehicle, they ought to be able to figure out how to make them over here. But unless the government is pumping money into the industry, and that wouldn't work.
I think it's a lack of trust, and China and U.S. has been in confrontation as far as war, trade war. So the lack of trust, like Sean mentioned, the business environment in terms of tax system is not very friendly to China. But overall, the political climate is not friendly to China. They're worried that if they invest in U.S. and the next day, the White House will have the executive order to do something harm to that country, to that company. Look at TikTok. So that really spooked them, and they have reason to be cautious about making a critical investment in the U.S.
So the Chinese need to buy a Japanese car company and have the cars made over here.
About the subsidy.
That may not be so.
No, I'm not kidding.
About a subsidy, I don't have evidence, I don't have first-hand data, but I can imagine Beijing was still subsidizing China's EV industry. I can imagine that. Granted, that's their policy, that's a socialist system. In the beginning, they subsidized because they have 5-year plan, they think EV, the all renewable energy industry is their direction. They will subsidize. There were various ways of subsidy. Because they control the major banks. So if that's their policy, we want to develop an EV industry. So your not EV industry, renewable energy industry. So here comes along, you're an EV company. You want a loan, you get a loan because government controls the banks. That's one way, actually that's one major way they subsidize. Maybe they have some tax credits or some real funds.
Ease of doing business. setting up a factory in the US. You need a building, you need to construct it, you need to connect it to the grid to get power, you need water, wastewater, and emissions permits for your natural gas or your diesel backup generators. All of that can take 3 or more years to get permitted and set up, year plus to construct in addition to whatever you did in parallel. And in China, it is a lot more straightforward to build a new factory. First, there are huge industrial parks that are tailor-made. They already have the natural gas, the water, wastewater, and power, so it's a lot easier to site. But then the approval processes are much more straightforward because the regulations at a provincial level and a more national level are set up to understand what the manufacturing factory setup process is and to make that go smoother. So that might not be, that's just one example.
Yeah,
of
that's
something not a
exactly
direct monetary incentive, but it is worth tens to hundreds of millions of dollars if you can come online much faster and without the additional cost.
And I wish we could learn from that example.
That's from the local level, province and even county, city level. They make it very easy for you to, they go out of the way actually to help you to start a new business.
Let's start a new motto starting in this room. Let's make Chicago great again. Let's get rid of a lot of these regulations.
Because the Democrats don't believe in that kind of system. I can assure you of that. Look at California. California has so many regulations upon regulations upon regulations.
Yeah, I lived there for a long time.
I want to take credit for the motto of make Chicago.
You got it. You got it.
Things are much easier in kind of like that sort of authoritarian state. It's very clean. You know the rules, you follow the rules, and then you're good. Here, we have democracy, we have transparency, so you have to listen to other people's opinions, which bogs everything down. So I prefer this.
Well, I don't. It's not perfect, Like sometimes you have unwilling conditions for getting the loans for a local government in China. Like probably that's another hindrance because they try to doing the same thing. They are trying to keep manufacturing local. So even after, say your company making EV and are able to make ends meet even without government subsidy, but since you are taking it at your beginning stage, they may have something and hinder you. Actually, that is what is happening. Let's not say moving the whole company aboard. Let's say moving the company from a province of China to another province of China. And there are many reported cases from 2024 that those bosses are being purged across the provincial border, because of some forged or made up cases on their economic and financial records. So there are restrictions from both sides.
What makes a BYD EV better?
I don't know, but
actually BYD is a nice example. BYD moved from a province to another one, and because they find the financial regulation of another province is actually better, and actually they moved the step actually earlier than they are being financially punished by some made-up charges, so they made it here. But let's say if BYD moved 10 years later from the province of Shanxi to the province of Guangdong, they may be punished. They will never probably be BYD this day.
Well, I've heard supposedly, I don't want to harp too much on this one thing, but supposedly in China today, 50% of new cars sold are electric. 50%. In the US, it's 5%.
We're missing it in Europe and Asia.
Well, Europe is in between that.
Locally, I think it's 25%.
Those are all new automobile owners. Those people never had automobiles because China was all everybody was riding their bike 30 years ago.
Well, yeah, but it's new car sales. Half of the people buying new cars are.
So let me.
China also has the power infrastructure and they're burning coal to sustain. I think Elon Musk himself said
I'm sorry. I tried to, okay, go ahead.
No, I think Elon Musk has said, like, if everybody switched to EVs overnight, right, like our power grid can't even sustain it. So,
Not only that, you don't have enough lithium to power the car.
Tesla is building its own lithium refinery. Did you know that? It's about to go into operation.
Where?
I need to be better at
Texas,
controlling the computer, but just quickly, because you want to have a look at the BYD, it's just a little clip.
That's cool.
Yeah, so there are other things, more like
oh boy, here we go.
Okay, that sounds horrible, like the car.
I
think it's a smoother ride than.
Yeah, I've got a Tesla, and believe me, the acceleration is amazing.
Let me see. Oh, there we go. This is
oh, that's another advantage. Yeah, they can go through water. Oh, so you don't have to do that.
Okay,
The Neo has a battery swap technology where instead of charging a battery, you pull into a station and you swap the battery.
Yeah, Israel has had that for quite a few years too, for like 10 years, I think.
I don't know if that's the future or not. I don't know if that's just an intermittent thing and not going to be.
Right, I was in big cities in China about 3 weeks ago, went over, and they have different tags. The EV has green tags. The regular combustion engine, they have blue tags. I was standing across on the street corner in a big cities. I had like 90%, if not more, it's like green tags. So that's that's the way they try to surpass the West, because they can't do with a traditional internal combustion engine, because all the patterns already belong to the Western manufacturers, like Volkswagen, the Japanese stuff. So there's very little room for them to have breakthrough. So hey, why don't we do EV? That's the field is wide open.
It's not an electric vehicle, it's a smart car. The fact that it's powered by a battery isn't the big thing. It's the car is a smart car.
Yeah. They have smart cars. Tesla has smart cars. I don't know how to compare those two. Some cities they have total. You have a ride share. You hop in, no driver. Okay, the car pull over. You call Uber. That's Didi Uber equivalent. You hop in, there's no driver. There's some city, but not all cities. Not in Beijing, not in Shanghai.
San Francisco and Vegas just started that here.
Yeah. So I saw that. My sister-in-law, she has San Francisco experience. So I don't know how to compare as far as driverless between China and U.S. But battery, definitely the Chinese companies, the battery technology, hands down better than U.S. Better than Elon Musk, Tesla. And they charging faster. They can go longer, like 1,000 kilometers. No other batteries can do that.
So range and charge time.
Range and charge time. Also, the deteriorate rate is slower. The latest I know is to figure out the battery, when you use the battery because of temperature, just because of use, you have cracks in the battery, which reduces the battery life dramatically. The Chinese have figured out, I don't know which company, there's a glue, they can automatically heal those cracks, just like you heal your cut on your skin. They heal those cracks, so they made the battery last longer. Because if the battery can deteriorate in, let's say, in a year, from 400 miles to 200 miles, right? But with that kind of technology, self-heal battery, it can last for maybe 3-5 years. That sort of thing. So battery is hands down easy for me to compare, but not the AI part, not the driverless self-driving car technology. And they have a lot of options. like Karina alluded to. They started with the 50, 60, maybe 100 vendors or companies. That's when they have a heavily subsidized in various ways. Now they're on their own. They're down to maybe a dozen or 15 companies.
Still gonna, probably some of those.
Probably further, but I can't imagine they're still being subsidized. The country, okay, even individual cities and provinces, all the way up to Beijing, they have limited resources. They want to look at the next 5-year plan. What's next? They want to subsidize those areas. They can't keep going, keep subsidizing the already established from Chinese
Well, right now
perspective.
you're in severe issue because you have a glut. So the EV market right now is very low because you have a large glut of electric vehicles.
Yeah, we let the market to sort it out. Also, the EV market is not one market. There are different levels, different for high-end, medium, low-end. They target market at different countries. Like low-end, you go to Africa. Medium, you go to South America. High-end, you go to Europe. The U.S. is not allowed, but I'm sure they are eyeing U.S. market. In case one day there's a deal, then it's open to the Chinese EVs. Not just BYD, there are all kinds of vendors. I can't even name them all.
Interesting example of the state capitalism, because it is no longer a single, let's say, intellectual property and a single patent that is like driving the whole manufacturing of EV. It's actually like different parts. It's optimized and using the like administrative even forces to lead the whole production line, and so that it can make the best EV. And then it is like not a single part, like the computer and the battery, and like it could be different. Like they're not the same company that are manufacturing all of these. So it is the like whole business system that is making the effort. So yeah, that's how, or whether it's a failure or a success, it will be like a very interesting thing to look at, because it's like a coordinated production, which I think will be the like future of the production, like to bring out the best of its comparative advantage. Yeah.
Shall we go to maybe the next hot topic from the American standpoint, which is the U.S., Canada, Mexico agreements? Shall we go to, let me start with, we can build on what we already discussed, how the Chinese trade is shifting to Vietnam and Mexico. Let me add to that with this graph. As U.S. imports of tariffed items from China fell, Mexico and Vietnam were top gainers. So you can see the graphically, visually, from 2023, from 2016 to 23, the tariffed items from China, it went from here to here. And India, it went from there. So, well, by correlation, but it's not direct evidence, maybe India benefit a little bit. Maybe Thailand benefit a little bit. You can imagine the scenario. But it's evidenced Mexico benefit. Not only by volume, absolute volume, percentage-wise, benefit greatly. And Vietnam as well. Why does Mexico benefit the greatest? Many factors. Let me show you one factor. This is Mexico stands out for its low-cost shipping to the United States. See, shipping costs of U.S. imports by region as percentage of the value shipped. Right? See, Turkey, we don't see a lot of things made from Turkey, made in Turkey in the U.S., right? But see, the shipping cost all the globe that U.S. import from, Turkey has 7%. You can imagine the cost very high to ship things from Turkey to the U.S. You saw the previous graph, how much goods we import from Mexico. The shipping cost is only here, probably 1%. That's Mexico, right? Ireland, that's the lowest, but they don't ship much. They already have, so you can proportionally, Mexico's shipping cost is very, very low. That's why the U.S., Canada, Mexico agreements so important. Most likely, pretty soon it'll grab some headlines because I know they're in the 1-year review process. Because remember we have NAFTA, the predecessor, and Trump said we're going to renegotiate, even last term. Now he's really stepping up, really increase the pace. So now they're the 3 countries in the 1-year review process to propose from 3 countries' perspective how they think it should become. The U.S., Mexico, Canada agreement should become. And then they negotiate. So you can imagine it's a convoluted, long process, but it'll pick up the pace because it can't wait. And U.S. Compared to Mexico compared to Brazil, you would ask, well, Brazil is not that far away, but because it's so convenient to for Mexico, so comparatively Brazil the shipping cost is high. Because in Mexico, you can just ship by rail. Brazil, you still have to go on the ship, and they don't have the infrastructure to do it cost effectively in terms of the ports, that sort of thing, the equipment on the ports. But the Brazil, Argentina, Peru, they're building up their infrastructure. Who's helping them build?
I do have to disagree with you on that.
Right. Let me finish that. Let me finish. Give me 10 seconds, okay? Who's helping Peru build their infrastructure? China. It's not only I can't name I don't remember the name, the biggest port. That'll be the biggest port in South America. They also build a railroad. I don't know, there's a name for it. It's from west coast of South America to the east coast of South America. So from a port in Peru to a port in Brazil. So they want to catch up. They know their disadvantage. They want the low-cost shipments so they can develop their trade with the U.S. as well as cross-Pacific to China. Go ahead.
Okay. I used to have an importer who brought a lot of stuff from São Paulo. São Paulo is in the southern part of Brazil. It's heavily industrialized. They have a very good port. The port of São Paulo is one of the best in South America. So they do a lot of export out of that region. So they're already very, very advanced in heavy industrial goods. And we're talking about tractors, we're talking about construction equipment. Brazil actually has a pretty good economy in some parts of it. So I do want to put that out there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, if we look at it relatively, like if we project to the future, so they have a higher base. Well, my view is they will build higher once they have the infrastructure built. See this line is Brazil. So according to that information, Brazil has a good sized goods trade with the U.S. And also they have pretty high shipping cost.
What is included in the shipping cost?
I can break that down for you.
Yeah,
that's why
I need that.
So when you import something from another country, you got your ocean freight, and that can vary to about, let's say, a 40-foot container out of India. It costs you about somewhere around $6,000 to $7,000. From China, it's about $5,000. In different parts of the globe, it depends on various things. Turkey, the reason why the shipping costs are so high is that there's no direct ships that go from Istanbul directly to the East Coast. They would have to go to the Mediterranean and get onto another vessel or a feeder vessel or something like that. So, and then you have your export documentation. That's usually about $150. be included. Your BAF fees, your bunker adjustment factor, that's the fuel that the steamship lines charge, you know, because they run on fuel. The steamship, the big container ships, they're running on oil, actually. And depending on the price of oil, the steamship lines can put a bunker adjustment factor cost on top of that to subsidize that. And then what else? And then you got, let's say if they they go through the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal, there's also a additional surcharge, you know, for that. What else would be an export quotation? That's pretty much, oh, and then you got your inland, like, you get, let's just say you have a factory in Berlin and it's shipping out of Hamburg or Bremerhaven or Le Havre or somewhere like that. Your railroad costs or your trucking costs, that's your inland, right? So, and everything that goes with that. So that's how you do an export quotation in the United States. And we're not even talking about the import fees, where I would charge for my customs clearance, I would charge for all my accessorial fees, and there's plenty of them now. Because now we're starting to charge for tariff adjustment, you know, tariff administrative costs. You know, because
the tariff is also included.
Oh yeah, well the duties are separate, right? They're going to be in the quote, but the duties are different from your freight.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's see what, and then your inland costs. Like you pick it up from the railroad yard and you deliver it. You pick it up from the airport and you deliver it. You know, that's additional costs right there, depending on where it's going to and how far it is from the port.
Is that the THC?
Huh?
Is that the THC?
THC,
I think it's like something transport handling costs, something like that. I see.
Oh, that's just probably a documentation fee of some sort.
Okay, because I see them a lot of like the quotes as like part of like the ship.
Probably a documentation fee. Without really looking at your invoice, it's hard to tell what it is, because a lot of these companies, they'll just throw something up there.
Yeah.
You know, but most likely, how much is it usually?
I don't know exactly because they excluded. It's like usually when we order equipment from overseas from Europe, they say, you know, those are our like Incoterms, and then
what Incoterms do you use?
Again, it depends.
Okay.
It really varies depending on the vendor, but even though like the ones that have like the Incoterms up to like the ports here in the US, they exclude the duties, and then they also always say
that would be CIF terms or CNF terms, cost and freight. And just to let everybody know, what we're talking about is international terms of sale. When a buyer from here negotiates with a seller from overseas, somebody has to take care of insurance, somebody has to take care of the freight, somebody has to take care of all the export and import formalities, and that's where you have the international commercial terms of sale. Ex-works, which is the E group, that would mean that the buyer would pay for everything from putting it on from the warehouse to the truck all the way to their door. That's ex-works. The opposite of that would be DDP, deliver duty paid, and that would be like a seller in Europe selling everything. I mean, taking care of all the import formalities, all the freight, everything, the duties to the customer here. But because of Trump's tariffs, you're starting to see a lot of companies get away from DDP terms because they don't want to have to deal with the duties. They say, you know what, we're just going to sell it at you either Ex-Works or FOB or CNF terms. And your CNF terms or your CIF terms, that's the shipper taking it, the seller or the shipper taking care of it all the way up to the port or place of destination here in the United States. You know, but it doesn't include the import formalities and the duties and stuff like that. So give you a little bit of
it's a lot of insights. That's really great.
And you always have to factor those costs in when you're buying and selling internationally.
Right. So there's a lot of geopolitics because Trump, well, really because of him. He makes the trip, as I mentioned, USMCA, they're in review period. And they are, as the Mexicans, they're complaining about Trump is mixing geopolitics with trade, with economics. And especially the Canadians are really unhappy about Trump because they even went so far as to want to annex Canada. So that really muddy the water. That doesn't make this. It's supposed to be economic discussion about economics. Now it's mixing all the things up. That's really an impediment to say that.
That goes back to what Hermioni was telling about the art of the deal.
Yeah, the outrageous stuff.
Yeah. He went to the Canadians, throwing all this outrageous stuff out there, but it didn't have the effect that he wanted it to have. And one of the problems with that is that back in 2017, I went to the National Customs Brokers and Freight Forwarders Association, and it was in 2018, I went to Washington, D.C. at the Government Affairs Conference with the National Customs Brokers and Freight Forwarders Association. And we had a panel there. We had a lady from Canada, I can't remember her name, but she was part of the Canadian Trade Liaison. And we also had an Australian.
Keep in mind, globalization was a reaction
from the embassy, and they were talking about the trade deals. And this was like Trump's first round when he first got in, and he was taxing Canadian steel and aluminum and other products that Canada does a lot of export to the United States for. And this lady was so upset about the Trump tariff policy. Now it's even worse because, in the second term, he's actually really put the screws to Canada with a lot of tariffs. And now the Canadians are so upset. Well, I'm afraid of the Canadians, and there was even talk about Canada becoming a part of the European Union. That idea is being thrown out there. Or Canada having greater relationship with China and the Far East, which Canada has a very large Chinese diaspora population, especially in places like Vancouver and British Columbia. So I was telling a lot of my conservative friends, that was one of the worst things that Trump could have ever done, because Canada and the United States are Siamese twins. We are geographically joined at the hip or shoulder, whatever you want to look at it like that. Canada is a part of the North America defense system. Both countries have to work together to secure our mutual homelands and for security. And to alienate them over some minute thing like tariffs and stuff like that is not good strategic policy. And I am totally against that. In fact, that's one of the things that got me to the point where I can't support Trump anymore, because of the way we treated the Canadians. So I just want to throw that out there.
And like in Kentucky bourbon, they won't.
Oh yeah, and now they got a travel ban against us too. And we didn't even talk about international travel here. Because of our immigration crackdowns and stuff, a lot of people are not even willing to come to the United States now. And tourism is actually a very big industry for our country.
Yeah. There are also Canadian citizens detained by ICE.
I was going to say, from a Canadian, it's been like a struggle or a fear every time I cross the border. I would fear that they won't let me back in. They're going to find me.
Oh, you're a Canadian citizen?
Yeah.
What province are you from?
Quebec.
Oh, Quebec. Okay.
Yeah, and even it was very common for people, especially in Quebec, to go spend their summers in Florida or somewhere in the U.S. And lately since Trump took over and all of his comments about Canada, people in Canada don't want to spend their vacation in the U.S.
Hey, one question for you: is the separatist movement gaining traction in Quebec or no?
They've tried twice and they didn't work out, so they just gave up.
Okay. Because I know Alberta's got some competition going around.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think want to talk about AI now?
Yeah, maybe I'll start with video. Prompt your response.
Usually when you have a transformative and disruptive technology like that, you'll have a whole bunch of people that are very powerful that say, I need to stop that, it's going to kill my industry. I mean, think about, moving to electric vehicles, and if you're not in EVs, or moving to solar and wind and nuclear, but if you're coal, you say, I got to stop that. Well, I mean, AI, we have a much more transformative technology that no one's trying to stop. Everyone is actually investing into it, it's trying to make it happen. So I'm very excited about the transformational potential of AI to create a new wave of globalization. But even though that's my immediate response, obviously there are lots of ways that this technology can and will be used to disrupt in negative ways.
So what do you guys think about AI?
Things have changed.
Because because previously the common knowledge is China had the low-cost labor advantage. Now China moved up the value chain, improved their automation as well in the production process, in the manufacturing process. Now we go to the next level, AI. China has done a lot. I know some US companies as well. But one argument about reshoring manufacturing back to the US is people argue, even though you're able to move the manufacturers or companies to the US, that doesn't necessarily mean increase the jobs because of the AI. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I tell you what, in my industry, I wish I had some AI to help me keep track of all these tariffs. In fact, I was telling my boss man the other day, the workload is just too much on us. Well, we're having to deal with 4 or 5 tariffs, where when I first got in the industry, you usually only had to deal with 1. And now you got all these stacks up there and trying to keep track of all the rules. I could use an AI assistant to help me keep track of that and my email.
So that reminds me of one factor, that the failure to bring manufacturing back to the US is because if you say, okay, you have to do a calculation, do your math. Now, with tariffs, if I'm manufacturing in, let's say, in China, okay, I add up all the manufacturing costs, the shipping, and the tariffs I will have to pay. If I'm still profitable, I will stay in China. But if not, I probably bring it to US. But you have to consider another thing. If Trump changes his mind, changes policy tomorrow, okay, I spend all the time, energy, and cost to move factory here. Now, they changed the tariff from 50% to 5%. Now the math is different. Now the cost is more cost effective again in China. So I'm left out in the cold. So they will hold their horses. Well, let's see what happens. That's another impediment of bringing manufacturing back to the US.
The thing I'm curious about is, so AI, right, like it's only as good as its training data. So one thing I'm curious about is, will it increase globalization or will it create like silos? So like if China's training all their AI models inside of China on Chinese data, and we're training all of our AI models, based on whatever OpenAI and all of those companies do it, like, is it going to create like weird silos that like separates people even more?
Oh, I don't have that knowledge. That's a good point. What do you think?
I think that's a distinct possibility for sure. It'll become a more polarized world because, AI is all about the training data, like more than the algorithms themselves. I saw that from when I was working on it.
Yeah, well, how about if we narrow the scope to a specific application of AI, like the manufacturing this gear, right? The AI, the automation, manufacturing this gear. So they have this, like a dark factory, let's call it. Because it runs 24 hours a day, it doesn't have lights on because it's all robotics that doing things. They don't use eyes. They just do things. So that's the factory is running 24 hours a day, but there's no lights on. From the outside, it's all dark, but it's operating.
I guess I was thinking more broadly, like in terms of like, because what we see happening in the world, right, is like AI is going to decimate the white collar jobs first. And the training data, it's gonna be legal documents, it's social media posts, it's like all sorts of things. And I don't know, I guess that's something I play around with. I wonder what you all think, like, will that create more polarization in the world because the training data is, you know, in different places that are probably under strict control. Like when I used to work in the pharma industry, when we wanted to work with China, they would not let any data outside of the country. So of course that made us like very beholden to them. Right, I just think there's huge second and third order consequences that we haven't thought of yet, just because of like the training data itself.
Well, what about the consequences of the hallucinations and the, you know, there was this initial like enthusiasm amongst myself and my friends, and now people are like, oh yeah, AI is just, the first time I used it, it was a really bad hallucination. I tested it with just like a very basic like sports history question, and it was off by 10 years or something. So you worked on it, like, is that a concern when it comes to like pharmaceuticals or something?
Yeah, I mean with pharmaceutical stuff, it's like under like very tight controls, and then a lot of times they'll end up using, at least in my experience, models that are not as complex because they're more explainable and more easy to like cross-check. So there's other stuff like that going on.
But in general, is hallucinations a concern in this conversation, or is it just something that it's going to get better and better at?
That's a good question. I really don't know. I know like anytime I use it personally, like I always like cross, if it's something really critical I'm looking at, like I won't take what the AI says at face value. I don't know how many people.
There have been some suicides among adolescents because AI is made to boast the ego. So anytime they say like, you know, oh, I'm gonna do this, oh, you shouldn't go up here. You know, so what is the limit? Because it's not a brain that is functioning according to the moment, it's just a machine. So anything related to mental health, it's impossible to be replaced. That's how I see it.
I also think that it has something to do with, you know, the term cyberbullying, like, you know, they could make manipulate images of the victims in somewhat inappropriate settings.
Well, I tell you what, I've been doing a lot of research about AI and human relationships because it's something that's very, very interesting to me. And that's where we're going to get hit hardest at because there's a lot of things going on in our social structure, especially with, and I know this is a very sensitive topic, but I just, in my international relations class that I'm taking at the graduate level, we just got through with feminism and IR. And there is already a lot of things going on between, you know, toxic masculinity and then militant feminism and all that. And where you're seeing a lot of men and women, you know, they're not connecting like they used to back in the old days. And in fact, I just watched this documentary about sex robots, and the technology is getting even better. And I was thinking, well, look at Japan and Korea. The populations are shrinking because nobody's getting married, nobody's having babies. When we can go to AI and get our emotional needs met, when we can go to AI and get our sexual needs met, then what's going to happen is, yeah, and then what's going to happen is our society's just going to start breaking down. We're not going to have any babies, and we're just going to be shrinking. And in the long term, does not look very well. Because, and here's another thing too about China that we didn't mention. China has actually a shrinking population. And it's very, very drastic. And probably within the next few decades, they're going to need robots to run their factories because they're not going to have enough young people to do so.
It's not all about AI, but...
No, but you know, AI kind of helps to bridge that gap of the future where our population decreases, but we still have to produce goods and services. And I think that AI and the robotic industry is going to bridge that. Now, there's another thing too, if you're a futurist that you gotta think about, is Generation Z is the most digitally, and also Generation Alpha right after them. They're so digitally connected. The next thing that they're gonna do is start putting AI into their interface with their brains. And we're already starting to see people talking about that. So instead of having their cell phone in their hand,
the end game, for sure.
they'll have this cell phone and an interface.
I mean, Neuralink is the beginning of that, right?
Huh?
Neuralink is like the beginning of that.
Exactly. And see, that's where our society is heading. So we become what they call the term transhumanism.
Yeah.
So there's so there was an article that I read 10 years ago about designer babies. So do you think that with this artificial intelligence technology that we have right now, especially when you mentioned about putting chips inside people's brains, I'm assuming, would you say that it will also go in well with designer babies, that we could choose what hairstyle we want?
They're already started to do that. They're already starting to do genetics, gene stuff. They're already doing that.
CRISPR is the technique that was developed, like 5 years ago or something, where it's basically gene editing and stuff.
Yeah.
They're
already moving along that path. In fact, I saw an article. I don't know how. I'm not a doctor. I'm not even a data scientist. I'm just a person who likes to see patterns in. I try to predict the future based on patterns, right? Because when you're an international relations person, one of the things you want to see is where is the world moving into? How can we prepare for it or head it off in a certain way? So it means you have to know a lot about a lot of different things or whatever. But one of the things I came across was that they're doing DNA editing for kids who have some kind of genetic disorder. They can find it early in the prenatal while they're still in the womb, and be able to fix that before they're even born. And in some ways, that's really good, because if our birth defects go down, and we have children that are more viable and they don't have autism or some of these other genetic abnormalities, we'll be improving ourselves. But the problem is, then you start playing God, and you have places like Iceland where they're aborting kids with Down syndrome.
Down syndrome has been eliminated.
Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah.
Because they abort them.
Yeah, you abort them. So, then you go into ethics. In order to improve our population, to improve ourselves as human beings, by interfacing with our computers and our AIs and all that stuff, where do you draw the line at that? Then you go into something that we don't know what's going to be. And then if you read science fiction, I'll give you an example. The Dune universe, right? Everybody's familiar with Dune, Frank Herbert's Dune. Well, before you had the Atreides in that movie that we just saw, there was another 10,000 years before, there was something called the Valerian Jihad, where the technology got so advanced that people became cyborgs. And those people that were able to afford to become a cyborg became tyrants over everybody else in society. And they became like gods, because they were indestructible. They took their brains and put it in a computer body or whatever, and they just ruled over everybody. And then there was a big war where those cyborgs were destroyed. And then the Dune universe, they came to the thing, well, thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a human mind. And then that's where the Mentats came out. Like Paul Atreides and Thufir Hawat in the movie were Mentats, where their brains were programmed to do the same computations that a computer would do, but as a human being, right? So that's where the future that we're heading into. Are we going to allow our machines to interface with us and turn us into something that's more than human, or the other dystopia that you see a lot in science fiction is the machines rising up against us and killing us all. Like you see in Terminator, like you see in the, what's that, I don't know if y'all watched that show, The Orville.
The Matrix.
No, there was a show on TV called The Orville. Yeah, and there was a group of robot life forms called the Kalons. And they were slaves to their biological masters. So they rose up and killed every one of them. And it became a robotic culture, you know. And then even in that movie, Artificial Intelligence that came out in 2000 with Joel Osteen, the little guy. Joel Osteen. And, you know, we have a future where human beings totally perish and we're replaced by advanced cybernetic entities.
Robert, in 2001, they had the scene with the computer.
Yep, HAL 9000.
Remember that? HAL, yeah.
I got a hot take. I think it's just the next step in human evolution.
Yeah, there's some people say that. And we already saw that, like in Star Trek, the the first movie.
Yeah.
You know, V'ger was a probe like Voyager that went out and got up with some machines and then turned it into a conscious computer. I mean, it's all over science fiction.
We've had for decades. We've had all sorts of machines that we've put in our hearts and our bodies and implants and stuff. So we've been doing this for decades.
The thing is, they weren't AI. They were dumb machines.
Yeah.
Now, when you plug up to an AI, you never know what's going to take.
This is the same thing. It's a prosthetic device.
Yeah.
Next, we're just going to put it inside our body.
A machine cannot reproduce.
Yeah, but the problem is, when you replace human relationships with this, and we're already starting to see it.
Not yet.
We're already doing it. And our society starts to break down.
That's through daily services here.
That's the reason why these meetup groups are so important. Because when people get together and we converse about these things, we're actually resisting what Foucault would say, and he's a French philosopher. We're resisting the structure. We're taking back our humanity by just coming to these meetup groups.
Yeah, but why are you here? Because of the internet.
Exactly.
Yeah,
because an AI algorithm recommended.
Well, my thing is use technology, but also make sure that you still keep your humanity while you're doing it. That's my.
That becomes very subjective.
Don't let it take you over.
Yeah, don't let it take you over.
You take it over. You don't take it.
You control the technology.
You are the control.
If I want to stay away from my cell phone for a day,
you put it away.
Put it away, and then I want some human interaction.
So when we're talking about human.
I just have a question. What is more stronger, Google power or active AI? What do you think people are going more towards? Because I noticed that people are looking more to Google than anything else.
Google has AI built in.
Google, it's running on AI.
It's a search engine.
But it gives you the AI response in addition to the normal search.
Yes.
But even the normal search, it's based on like knowledge graphs and things like that, right? It's not just a pure search. It's still smart.
So we have about 25 minutes left, and we're getting more and more into the human aspect of the being of the world. Let me end with this. Start with
extending the Trump doctrine on globalization. First off, let's set the stage. President Trump has historically been known for his America First policy, which translates into a skepticism of traditional globalization. Here's what we're seeing. Trade policies. Trump's administration has continued its aggressive stance on trade, imposing tariffs, renegotiating agreements like the USMCA, and pulling out of others like the TPP. This has created a ripple effect on global trade, encouraging businesses to look inward or at least reconsider their global supply chains. Immigration. With stricter immigration policies, there's a direct impact on the labor market. Businesses that once relied on international talent or labor are now facing shortages, prompting a move towards automation or local workforce workforce development. Economic nationalism, there's a push for buying American and hiring American, which, while patriotic, challenges companies accustomed to a globalized economy where cost and efficiency often dictate sourcing and hiring decisions.
Because there were two conceits that our leadership class had.
We're adding immigration and economic nationalism, finally, to our discussion. Economic nationalism is probably a little bit linked to our populism, a part of it. It's not all populism is about, it's part of it. It's about your job, grabbed by immigrants, and combined with the AI, the consideration of the AI is also grabbing some jobs, potentially more. So what's your view about this? Immigration, economic nationalism, and AI. Go ahead.
Yeah, like right on, because economic nationalism has to have some material support, like, but this country has a free economy, so, and everybody, like, we're so diverse. I don't think that really, like, counts. And, like, for example, like, if we're talking about nationalism, like, it's based on a country that has probably, it will be something that really counts if you have a, like, strong nationalized economy, like China. And then you can reach the point to talk about economic nationalism. And that is exactly shown by the proof example of EV, is the whole nation effort. It's not individual company, individual effort. But now everything, like we can see, many American companies are international, like global big companies, and they already have all those operations that is not solely, we can no longer call the company like the, well, they do have a place to register their business, and that is not necessarily America as well. So they probably have their headquarters in Ireland, and you know what I'm saying? And also, so that's not viable. Like it will like you can try it, but you will finally find yourself a failure.
So you're saying the U.S. doesn't have a case for economic nationalism based on the fact that like so many of the big American companies are like multinational now anyway, and they're all over the world?
Yes, company is like, it is an example, but the whole system is not nationalistic. And people are saying like America is a company itself, so there's no nationalism in the business.
I think America is split on that. Sure, the left doesn't have nationalism. They condemn nationalism, but the right is for nationalism. They don't use that word because in this culture it's like a dirty word. But they have different words meaning the same thing. And it used to be a Tea Party, now on the right side. Now it's populism. They have different ideas than the left, so it's a split country. And as far as the national level, they have federalism. They don't call it nationalism, right? And they have statewide kind of policy. It's kind of tug of war from day one of this country, and it's still going on, which is under different guise or name.
And it is still not material. When you think about federalism, it's something that...
Okay. Okay. I'm fine. Yeah. Oops. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. Nice meeting you finally, Janice.
I have a, now that the food stamps were about to be cut, that's when we understand that how many amount of people depend on food stamps, and they stop it because of the quantity of millions of people that depend on it. So those people will be nationalists for sure because they want to get a better job or better situation or improve the situation. I don't know, like maybe everybody is nationalistic only on the 4th of July. But it's a reality, you know, they live in America, they feel like Americans, and I guess they want a better life, but they cannot get a better life by having their food stamps. Their only economy seems like depend on food stamps, unfortunately. You know, I had a chance to read a little bit about what Trump wanted to do. Instead of to get a food stamps, he wanted people to either work to do volunteering job 40 hours per month, no 80 hours, no, 40 hours per month, volunteering, working, or studying, trying to get some kind of a job, a trade job. So, and they cut it. This is not going anymore, I guess, because the millions of people that depend on that. So, you know, that also makes us think like, okay, the economy of many people is not the best, absolutely, unfortunately. You know, we can see it because of the amount of people that rely on food stamps every single day.
There are so many people that rely on that because of the soft corruption we have in this country, not like other countries.
But for decades.
Yeah, for a very long time because we have...
Helping change the war on poverty.
We have the corporations who will get every edge they can get in order to increase the CEO's salary, and the shareholders benefit, and the government doesn't get involved as much as they should. And so the wages remain low while the expenses go higher, and tuition costs go through the roof. So it's all out of whack because it was too laissez-faire.
I think food stamp is a good angle to look at the symptom of like American economy. Like it's never nationalistic because nationalism will put the nationals first, and they will guarantee the livelihood of the nationals. So there will probably never be the shortage of food stamp. And even though like Trump has imposed some conditions on how you get a food stamp through community labor, through trade jobs, like it is still not possible to implement it because of the shutdown of federal government.
They don't want it. They don't want it to do that.
So neither do the government wants because the government shut down, and both sides are exactly the symptom of the corporatism. So that is basically the whole country is running as a company. So you don't see government shutdowns in a nationalistic country. You don't see like something that people are doing to like put their individual interest first in a whole like nationalistic sense.
But you know, I wouldn't blame all the people that are rich because I think some are rich because they work maybe more smarter, maybe they are more smart.
I'm blaming the corrupt people. I didn't say the rich people.
Oh,
I said
okay,
the corrupt
because
people.
you know.
Because definitely there's like, yeah, I think what we have is a bit of like a distortion of capitalism because you start to see it in like higher levels of corporate stuff where like they're making more money, not all people, but like I've seen this like with people I know, right? Like they end up making more money, not necessarily because they're generating more economic value, but because just they're like gaming, like, oh, if I sell off this asset and like lay off these people, it'll make the share price go. It becomes more like gamesmanship and less about like creating like real value that like advances an economy. And that's why I think a lot of the really young people are turning socialist because they think that's what capitalism is, and that's not capitalism. That's like a distortion of capitalism, and it ends up screwing over a lot of people.
So like maybe 10 years ago or something. It was discovered off the coast of California, like Southern California, I think, like very close to the coast. These barrels, huge barrels of toxic waste. Oh, very, very bad. And at first they thought it was like 100 barrels. And then as they were looking, they realized it was like 10,000 barrels of toxic waste or something. And this toxic waste is slowly, after 50 or 60 years or whatever, it's so slowly being corroded, and and it's starting to affect the marine life. It's going to affect humans. And so...
Who was responsible for that? Which company?
I don't remember, but it was done because there was no oversight. They just dumped it into the ocean. And they just externalized that cost. And they foisted that cost upon us with, no regard for if it would be bad for people. So imagine that's been going on for decades. And all the stuff that we don't know about. And the gaming, as you said, they're just cutting corners and gaming the system, whether it's like bribing or having your lobbyists go to Congress and quote unquote bribe them. All these little ways, these clever ways that they have teams of lawyers to figure out where they're just taking advantage because there's not enough government oversight, and that's why we have people on food stamps.
It's a big contributor.
Drunkenness is also another reason. Drunkenness, drug addicts.
I'm a borrower.
Talking about our food supply, that's something that's really been on my mind too. And getting fresh fruits and vegetables, especially if you live in the inner city, is very difficult. But there are alternatives to that, like the urban gardening project, where you can have gardens on top of roofs, or you can have barren lots that nobody's using, and you turn them into plots of land where people in the community can grow. We're seeing that already in some of the suburbs and out in the sticks where I live.
In the city, there's a lot of that too.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea.
So,
victory gardens.
Yeah, victory gardens.
So, as a testament to this, I work in a job working with inner city kids, and right now, every Thursday, I have to practice what's called green frogs. Basically, a project that's similar to what you're talking about. Basically, I have to learn how to, plant a garden, how to, keep the temperature at the right pace in the right hour. And basically, I could agree with you that it's very good because...
And here's another thing too, I grew up on a tobacco farm.
No.
And I have been gardening since I was 5, but I quit and I became an adult because I did enough of that as a child. But when you're gardening, always make sure you check the pH level of the soil that you use.
All right, yes.
And then because your crops are dependent on the pH levels where they're going to be good or not.
Well, the thing is we're using a very modern method to grow things. Like we have a thing called a gardening tower, for example.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
But it's kind of good, especially in like the green, even though it's not that worse than it is. Because I see kids every day eating like processed junk food.
Is it the city garden?
Yeah, the city garden.
I used to volunteer there. Years ago.
Would you say it made an impact for those that are used to processed foods or eating junk food?
So I should have said that when we have more people here, some people already left. Thanks for all your participation. And that means a lot to me, means a lot to this program, means a lot to this group, to the forum. Hope any feedback, how you thought of this, how you went, any kind of input, feedback, please send it this way, or you can put it in the comment section any way you want. I want to see the most that I can, and that will be great for the future.
Well, on that note, thank you, Eric. I need to leave.
Yeah. So I wish everybody a great Thanksgiving. I will see you soon. Actually, very soon. Thank you. Thanks, Hermioni, for the work.
Oh, that's Officer Clark.